Domestication is an evolutionary, rather than a political, development. They were more likely to survive and prosper in an alliance with humans than on their own. Humans provided the animals with food and protection, in exchange for which the animals provided the humans their milk and eggs and their flesh. Akimbo, this must be one of the odder-looking words in the language and puzzles us in part because it doesn't seem to have any what's more, it is now virtually a fossil word, until recently almost invariably found in arms akimbo, a posture in which a person stands with hands on hips and elbows sharply bent outward, one that signals impatience, hostility or contempt. The problem begins with the alphabet itself. Building a spelling system for English using letters that come from Latin, despite the two languages not sharing exactly the same set of sounds, is like building a playroom using an IKEA office set. Modern buildings have to achieve certain performance requirements, at least to satisfy those of building codes, to provide a safe, healthy, and comfortable environment. However, these conditioned environments demand resources and energy and materials, which are both limited in supply, to build and operate. 3 professors from Hamburg University's medical faculty traveled last month to Ingeborg's sitting room in East Berlin to test her on the work she carried out in pre-war Germany. The insults and criticism were not unexpected. What was surprising was people's enthusiasm about the competition. Thousands have participated in the discussion. Who do you think is the most glamorous person? A biotechnologist who led his company in international research, an ordinary welder who gained international fame through his work, or a photographer complimented widely for a series of photos? Chapel was a passenger. Almost as tall as the jeep on her hind legs, she appears to be forcing her muzzle into the back window. The Office of Personnel Management was the target of the attack, but data from nearly every government agency was stolen. U.S. investigators say they believe Chinese hackers were behind the breach. While the Republican field is packed with male candidates, so far, some of the sharpest Clinton critiques have come from women. As far as politics go, the responses are just as varied. Mitigation is common and calls for a reduction of emissions and less reliance on fossil fuels. Coal-burning power plants are now replaced with hydraulic power plants, and electrical cars are replacing some gasoline-efficient cars. Many people, however, feel that this is not enough. The border itself between Mexico and United States is fraught with a mix of urban and desert terrain and spans over 1,900 miles. Both the uninhabited areas of the border and urban areas, Free trade is an economic policy under which the government does not interfere with trade. No tariffs are applied to imports or exports, and people are allowed to trade goods and services as they please. Supply and demand dictates the prices for which goods and services sell and are the only factors that determine how resources are allocated in society. Unlike the United Kingdom, which has taken a relatively restrictive approach to the possession of arms, the United States has taken a more lenient approach. In the United States, trade unions originated in Europe during the Industrial Revolution. Because of the machinery that had become commonplace, skilled labor became less in demand, so employers had nearly all of the bargaining power. Employers mistreated the workers and paid them too little for the work they did. Trade unions were organized that would help in the improvement of working conditions. Unions take the power out of the employer's hands on many issues. There are examples of cases where workers were engaging in sexual or racial harassment, but were protected by their unions and allowed to keep their jobs. Poor workers and excellent workers often receive the same pay and raises, giving no reason for a person to work harder than necessary at their job. Another administration option is to bake marijuana at a relatively low temperature to kill any dangerous microorganisms and then allow that patient to eat it or drink it. Both of these methods of administration make smoking the drug unnecessary. A smoking ban is a public policy that includes criminal laws and health regulations that prohibit smoking in certain public places and workspaces. There are varying definitions of smoking employed in this legislation. The strictest definitions define smoking as being the inhalation of any tobacco substance, while the loosest define smoking as possessing any lit tobacco. Welfare has a special political meaning to the United States because it refers to how the poor receives financial aid. In comparison, welfare services are regarded as a universal right in other regions like Europe, where it is believed that all citizens should be able to obtain a minimal level of social support and well-being. Water covers over 2/3 of the Earth's surface and constitutes almost 70% of our bodies. This profound organic association appears to trigger a quick reaction in our brains when we're close to water. Indeed, the mere sight and sound of water can incite a surge of neurochemicals that promote well-being and induce relaxation. Permafrost is ground that is frozen year-round. In the Arctic, ice-rich permafrost soils can be up to 260 feet thick. Due to human-caused warming of the atmosphere from greenhouse gas emissions, a steady thawing of the permafrost is currently taking place where the upper layer of seasonally thawed soil is gradually getting thicker and reaching deeper into the ground. WHO has issued a public statement calling for the disclosure of results from clinical trials for medical products, whatever the result. The move aims to ensure that decisions related to the safety and efficacy of vaccines, drugs and medical devices for use by populations are supported by the best available evidence. Buying directly from farmers at markets allows you to understand the processes that make up food systems, gives you insight into the seasons and the land, and creates a connection between you and the people who grow your food. Small-scale farms conserve soil and important fields, meadows, and surrounding open spaces that are crucial to maintaining a healthy environment. Nearly anyone living in eastern North America, who has ventured beyond their porch, has had at least one unpleasant encounter with poison produced by contact with an oil in its leaves. Poison ivy is also an important source of food and cover for wildlife. Pineapple plants usually require a lot of water to grow and more when they set their fruit. They should then be watered frequently all over their leaves. They should then be treated with more caution because too much water would be detrimental to the ripening of the fruit, which would become watery, transparent and of inferior taste and smell. Calcium plays an extremely important role in the production of plant tissues and enables plants to grow better. It is responsible for keeping the cell walls of plants together. It is also crucial in activating signals that coordinate certain cellular activities. Calcium also increases the resistance to external attacks and increases the feed value of forage crops to livestock. Blue whales are the largest living mammals. Though reports of maximum length and weight vary from one account to another, Antarctic blue whales are known to have reached lengths to 100 feet and weights of over 150 tons before stocks were severely depleted by whaling operations. North Atlantic blue whales may be expected to reach lengths of 80 to 85 feet. The attempt to gain a perfect understanding of all the material can overwhelm and paralyze you. Flexible thinking is a skill that you will develop with practice, not with extreme studies. Construct and follow a reasonable study plan. Remember that examiners are testing what you can reasonably be expected to know, a finite and manageable amount of work. The fertility of the soil and the climatic conditions of the southern coasts of the Australian continent are very favorable for the introduction of new species. The settlers took advantage of this fact to a great extent and cultivated the most useful fruit trees and vegetables of Europe on a large scale. Fast charging is paramount in making electric vehicles a success. Fast charging makes electric cars more useful because of the reassurance which drivers get knowing that they can quickly recharge. It eliminates range anxiety. It seems that car owners with fast charge-capable cars, with enough fast charging stations around them, feel capable of taking longer trips. Avocados are native to Central and South America. The popularity of the avocado is down to its rich, creamy, velvety texture and mild flavor. There are dozens of varieties of avocado ranging in size, color and texture. When harvested, the flesh softens to a buttery texture that has become extremely popular in everything from toast toppings to desserts. Working from home tends to be a relatively easy experience for the office professional. If your work involves using computers, it's quite easy to do the same at home. It can save you a lot of money in fuel costs alone per year. It also helps you to strike a better balance between career goals and family life. We are living through an extraordinary time with the rapid spread of the coronavirus, designated as COVID-19. A lockdown that restricts the movement of people and goods, to prevent the spread of the deadly virus is in place. Citizens will only be allowed to leave their homes for essential work and purchasing food or medicine. The Global Migration Compact is the first global framework to be negotiated in all its dimensions on a common approach to international migration. It is the product of an intensive process of negotiations providing a strong platform for cooperation on migration now and into the future. It draws on best practices and international law, to make migration safe and positive for all. E-waste is now the world's fastest-growing waste stream. It is estimated to have reached 50 million tons in 2018. Globally, society only deals appropriately with 25% of e-waste. There is little data on what happens to the rest, which for the most part ends up in a landfill or is disposed of under poor conditions by informal workers. Lincoln's apparently radical change of mind about his war power to emancipate slaves was caused by the escalating scope of the war, which convinced him that any measure to weaken the Confederacy and strengthen the Union war effort was justifiable as a military necessity. Ever since I remembered, my father woke up at 5:30 every morning, made us all breakfast, and read the newspaper. After that, he would go to work. He worked as a writer. It was a long time before I realized he did this for a living. Yellow is the most optimistic color, yet surprisingly, people lose their tempers most often in yellow rooms and babies cry more. The reason may be that yellow is the hardest color on the eye, so it can be overpowering if overused. Augustus was given the powers of an absolute monarch, but he presented himself as the preserver of republican traditions. He treated the Senate, or State Council, with great respect, and was made consul year after year. He successfully reduced the political power of the army by retiring many soldiers but giving them land or money to keep their loyalty. Capturing solar energy does not contribute to any pollution and does not harm the atmosphere. One of the factors why many individuals are still hesitant to make use of solar power is because it is expensive. The need for a big location of space is another reason why people aren't taking into consideration solar power. The uniquely scented flavor of vanilla is second only to chocolate in popularity on the world's palate. It's also the second most expensive spice after saffron. But highly labor-intensive cultivation methods in the plant's temperamental life cycle and propagation mean production on a global scale is struggling to keep up with the increasing demand for the product. In Brazil, it is unlawful to chop down a Brazil nut tree. Thus, they can be found outside manufacturing plants, homes and on the sidewalks. The fruits are very heavy and rigid. When the fruits fall, they pose a serious threat to vehicles and people passing under the tree. Brazil nut fruits sink in fresh water, which can cause clogging of waterways. Australians do speak English, however, for some tourists and travelers, it can be difficult to understand the slang. Also, the links between Australian and American English were seen to be very tenuous. At least some colloquialisms in Australian English does not exist in other types of English. There is a part of Spain's sun-baked Andalusia that is extraordinary not only because of its unspoiled terrain and authentic Spanish traditions but also because of its caves. These are not dark, damp holes, with dripping water and evil smells. People have the right to make informed judgments about the kind of leaders they have. Attempts to restrict what may be reported about public figures in the press could easily become a conspiracy to keep voters in the dark and to manipulate them. All elections are to a greater or lesser extent about the character of the leading politicians involved. Pluto lost its official status as a planet yesterday when the International Astronomical Union downsized the solar system from 9 to 8 planets. Although there had been a passionate debate at the General Assembly meeting in Prague about the definition of a planet, and whether Pluto met the specifications, the audience greeted the decision to exclude it with applause. While blue is one of the most popular colors, it is one of the least appetizing. Blue food is rare in nature. Food researchers say that when humans searched for food, they learned to avoid toxic or spoiled objects, which were often blue, black or purple. When food dyed blue is served to study subjects, they lose appetite. Culture is divided into material and non-material, and the speaker's aim is to show how they both affect each other. Material developments in tools and technology can affect non-material culture, our customs and beliefs, and the other way around. Genetics is used as an example as it has changed the way we think about life, but also our beliefs have affected its rate of development. If bonuses or incentive pay schemes work so well for chief executives and bankers, why does everyone not get them? After all, many jobs involve making important decisions or taking risks. Is there anything about the corporate decision and financial risks that makes these categories of work special in terms of how they need to be incentivized and rewarded? The diversity of human language may be compared to the diversity of the natural world. Just as the demise of plant spices reduces genetic diversity, and deprives humanity or potential medical and biological resources, so extinction of language takes with it a wealth of culture, art and knowledge.